Alright, so now that we've set up our Wacom tablet, let's see what those changes have done. What we're going to do is create a new document, and we actually haven't done that yet, so we're going to show you how to do that now. Create a new document, click File New, and here it's going to tell you some of the default things. Okay, you can name it. Okay, I can just call it Doodle. Alright. And it's going to have a preset here. There's lots of presets in here. There's ones that are US paper. See, that'll make one that's 8.5 by 11. Hey, that's the size of a piece of paper. 300 pixels per inch. That's there because anytime you're wanting to print something out and you're not sure what the resolution should be, this is what you want to choose. Okay. All right. Now, the truth is the eye starts to get fuzzy, if you will, with anything lower than 230, 225 pics. But print resolution is 300. If you have 300, it's going to be consistent and look good throughout the page. If you're going up higher, you're going to miss resolution. So it's like, you know, why do you have the detail when nobody can see it? So 300 is a good thing to start with. Now, when you're putting something on a computer screen, the number's usually 72. But with these new Retina displays or high DPI displays, like on those new Mac computers, you might have to go to a higher number. But if you know you're going to print it out, 300 is going to be a good size. Now, I want you to understand how many pixels that is. If you took 300 and you multiply it by 11, you would get 3,300. So you don't have to know exactly what pixels are versus the inches. You can just change this little thing here and it'll switch. Now, always be mindful of what this says. Sometimes I tell students, hey, I want to make a 10 by 10 inch document. Well, other times I might say I want it to be 1,000 by 1,000 pixel document, and a student will make it be 1,000 inches. Let's see what that looks like. If it's 1,000 inches, it is, well, we'll make it to inches here. Let me see. 1,000 inches, 300 pixels per inch. That's going to be, let's see, 300,000 pixels. And that's way too big. So always be mindful of what it says here on the right. I'm going to go ahead and just reset it back to the default Photoshop size of 7 inches by 5 inches at screen resolution of 72 pixels per inch. Now down here, this is also important. It's called the color mode. RGB color can show, millions and millions and millions of colors, 16.7 million colors. There are different modes. You can have grayscale. You only get black and white. If you ever are trying to change your colors down here in your document and you can't seem to change it to a color, you might be in grayscale. Okay, so we tend to work in RGB most of the time. There's also CMYK. CMYK stands for cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. The K is black. And what that is that's for a situation when you are using a inkjet printer and it's going to print out with those 4 little inks. Okay, so lab colors for professional printers and bitmap means that there's only a certain number of colors. Okay, in our case we're going to go with RGB color, and there's also bit depth. Bit depth, higher is not necessarily better for us. You get more colors to choose from, but your effects and filters are limited in higher bit depth. So we're going to leave it at 8-bit. You can choose the background contents. There are 3 different options. White, the background color, which in my case is white, but if it was green, it'd be green. And transparent. In our case, I'm going to choose transparent. Okay. The color profile, we're going to tend to be working RGB. And our pixel aspect ratio is square pixels. You can change that for situations like NTSC. That's a television, an old school television. Okay, so in our case, we're going to leave it at square pixels, and we're going to click OK. So in general, I didn't change anything other than the title up here, okay, and that transparent. I'm going to go ahead and click OK. All right, so now I have this document. Notice it's got a layer. It doesn't say background. It says layer, and I have my brush over here, and my brush is pretty big. If yours is only, something like 13 or something, that's okay. All right, so I'm going to just show you a couple of these brushes here. If you click up here on the brush options here, this first one, right, when I press harder, nothing changes. You see I'm pressing light with my pen and hard with my pen, nothing changes. I'm going to go ahead and step backward on that. So I'm going to say edit step backward, which is Alt Control Z. If I switch over to this one, the third one over, and I press lightly and then I press hard, it gets fatter and then skinnier again. So in this brush, the sensitivity of pressure has been assigned to the size of the brush, the diameter of the circle. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and choose this fifth one here. All right, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to go light touch, heavy touch, light touch. This one here, the pressure sensitivity has been assigned to how transparent the pen is. Okay, so it's a transparent gray over here. Now, where do you change these settings? Well, it's actually over here in the brush panel. The brush panel looks like a bunch of brushes, and when you click on it, you'll see all your different brushes. In my case, you might not have this up. Okay, I have this up, but let's say you don't have that particular panel up. If you just press F5 on your keyboard, it'll come up. So in this case, transfer, which is related to opacity and flow, is assigned to the pen pressure. So I'm going to turn that off. I want you to notice how this changes back and it's a normal brush stroke. This represents what my brush is going to look like. If I uncheck the box, that would have done the same thing. So sometimes you can check boxes but not switch to them. Okay, so I want you to know that when you highlight and check, you want to go to that actual setting. So you see that's different. See how these things changed when I jumped over to Shape Dynamics. So back on transfer here, I'm going to tell the opacity jitter to be on pen pressure. So that means that when my brush is light, it'll be a light touch. So I can slowly build up with a lot of strokes of light all the way to dark. This is how you shade. Okay. You can also go to Shape Dynamics, which is where the pen pressure has been applied to the size. So pen pressure can affect two things at once, multiple things at once. Okay, so in this case, the pen pressure is assigned to the shape, the size of the diameter. So now it'll be light and tiny. So you see it's very skinny lines. You see I'm getting very skinny lines. So anyway, there's a whole bunch of settings in here that you can play with, and it's no problem. Once you switch to another brush, it's going to reset these to different settings. There's also some settings up here next to the brush that I just want you to make sure you are in general keeping it at normal, 100, off, 100, off, off. Make sure these are all set like this. If you see them clicked in like that, turn it back to normal, okay? Because we will be working with that later in our painting unit, and I really want you just to keep it simple and not mess with it much there. So anyway, whether or not you want to change those things, that's how you do it. I'm going to go ahead and close my, well, you know what, I'm going to turn off that Shape Dynamics, and I'm going to close my panel, and then I'm going to change my color to something. So I'm going to click on the color, it brings up my color picker, I'm going to choose a blue, and you'll see I'm getting a nice little blue fade. You can switch the colors, and let's say I have some orange, put some orange next to this, so you can have some orange fading into the blue. Alright, so anyway, what I want you to do is simply practice with your pen working inside this area. Make sure that you have your thumb of your offhand near those buttons, and make sure that you are not floating above your tablet, but your hand is resting on your tablet as you are drawing with one of your fingers just underneath the brush tips so that it moves around and then clicks when you press it to the tablet. Have fun with that.